Our piece that we're doing is God Goes Green. And I'm sure a lot of people don't realize that the Jewish tradition, Islam, and Christian tradition, we all start from the same book.
Yeah.
And I was reading your blog, and you had written that Islam looks at that Muslims are stewards of the earth. And in the Catholic tradition, which I come from, it's looked at as we have dominion over the earth, and now we're struggling with that word. Has it always been, the Holy Quran says that Muslims are stewards of the earth? I
think the actual language, the Khalifa, is the word you're talking about in Islam, is that we are the representatives of God on earth. We are we were literally the representatives, and so as representatives we have a responsibility. So we have this trust that we have with God. So some people throughout history have interpreted that term, the Khalifa, to be to dominate in that sense of a dominion, right? So I have taken that same interpretation. So there's one way that says we can pillage and destroy and take from and not really care about the consequences. The other way is that we leave the earth better than we found it.
And we're seeing that also in Judaism. We're seeing that struggle of, are we here to take care of the earth, or are we here to dominate it? And are you feeling in Islam that there is a movement towards being more sustainable and more stewards of the earth?
There is a movement. There's a movement that's happening all over the globe, particularly in Muslim countries, Muslim-dominated countries like Indonesia. Even in Iran, there's like an environmental movement in Iran. There's also a sort of a more grassroots environmental movement of Muslims in the United States. In the United States, it's more focused on food and how we make choices around how we eat and how we take care of each other. But there's also a movement towards how do we manage our spaces, our mosques, and our community centers. So I think across the board, you're seeing in the Muslim world is a recognition that we need to think differently about our relationship with the planet, because at the core, our relationship to the earth is a reflection of our relationship to ourselves.
Is there any inner conflict that's going on with Islam? I try to liken it to what's going on in the United States. We want to get off fossil fuels. We want to be better stewards of the earth, but fossil fuels are what allowed us to be such a great nation, cheap energy. And you have Muslim nations that were able to become rich, powerful nations because of fossil fuels. Is there a little bit of a...
There is a I think some, the United Arab Emirates in particular, they're taking their oil money, their oil-rich wealth, and essentially laundering that, if you call it dirty money in a sense. And cities like Abu Dhabi have focused, and they want to become the greenest city in the world. So they're trying to transform and take that, transmutate, if you will, the dirty energy into like sort of a clean realm. In my book, I talk about energy from heaven versus energy from hell. And I think that we've existed for a certain amount of time, and that energy from hell, in that sense, the dirty fossil fuels, gave us an amazing amount of growth, like you said. But we don't have to stay there just because it got us to this point. We can transform again, and we can choose to get our energy from wind and from the sun and from geothermal for that matter.
What about some of the poorer Muslim nations in Africa? They're just starting to get the internal combustion engine, and they're starting to get coal power plants. And we see this going on in the United Nations, where the poorer nations say, hey, you had your turn. We want a coal plant. We want lights on.
I think that there is an opportunity. That's a prime example where a developing nation can actually say, hey, listen, we want to be people who are developing the latest technology. Bloom Energy, for example, they have that small battery that one of the boxes can power one American house. Well, we can be a place to pilot those technologies. If you want to try that out on a new developing city, we're creating infrastructure for a place. We can actually be the first places to do that, and they can lead. If they see the opportunity, they can end up leading in this entire energy revolution. Because fundamentally, it's an open slate. We can create from scratch in some instances. So I think it's a great and a wonderful opportunity. So if people saw it instead of look what they did, and more of like, hey, look how we can lead, look how we can. And one example is Brazil. Brazil was a developing country, and they use natural gas, they use ethanol to really take their country to the next level, and now they lead in that energy production.
And if we don't do it, another country is going to do it.
Without a doubt. And I think there's an example in Sierra Leone where the capital is actually contracting with is in negotiations with an American country to look at solar power and solar power in their capital to see how we're going to develop our street light infrastructure. Maybe we can use solar power, and they're fielding bids right now as we speak. And that's an example of an American Muslim company that might be providing solar power for an African nation, descendants of Africans that are Muslim, that are now going back to Africa and helping provide energy for that nation.
Now, right behind you, we have Lower Manhattan, and probably the most famous not yet built mosque, the Cordoba House. They've announced that they're going to be the first LEED certified mosque in the United States. Is this something that was always planned? Is this a PR thing to help it be more accepted down there, or?
I'm sure it helps that it's in terms of the PR to have it be a green mosque. By local law, they have to do it, right? In New York City, buildings of that size have to be LEED certified. So they're going to have to do it. The question is the way that they do it. And that's where I hope that they think next level about how they approach it. There's some fantastic examples in the UK of mosques that have gone green, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, even in the Great Mosque in Mecca uses gray water systems. So I think that there's a great opportunity here. Now the challenge for them will be, if they're going to start from scratch, they might as well look and see if they can do geothermal energy in a location like that. Maybe it's possible. I'm not sure if it is in that location, but I think they could look at a bevy of different opportunities in that location. And
I misspoke. I said for it to be accepted by the community. It's already been accepted by
Correct.
The community. I meant accepted by people who don't live there.
I don't think it'll ever be truly fully accepted by everyone. But the question is, what is its role in the city? And if it's new construction, and some people are like the sensitivity issue. Well, there's also a question of like our sensitivity towards the natural world and the natural environment. And for any person to put up a new structure in New York City, especially from the ground up, especially a religious institution, this is the question: if we love God, do we love His creation, right? And so this is an opportunity for the Cordoba House or Park 51, whatever they want to call it these days. This is an opportunity for them to lead.
Now, it's interesting that you had mentioned that that in the Holy Quran that they're struggling with that word stewardship versus dominion, and I know that in Judaism they are as well, and I'm Catholic and I know that we're struggling with that. It's just another thing that we have in common, isn't it?
That's a great point. This is the beauty of this movement particularly around renewable energy, because that's the stuff that we create our existence on, right? We can't do any of the things that we're going to do, but we don't want to go backwards. We don't want to go and live some subsistence lifestyle. So we have to figure out a way to maintain the standard of living that we've gotten to, but also do it in a smarter and greener and cleaner way. And part of that conversation and that work, the actual physical work, will bring together those faiths in a way that like talking about interfaith would never do. We don't have to talk about what we think of God or what our practices are. We just have to work and work together.
Now we're starting to see, at least in the Christian side, Catholics usually are really hard to push into any kind of new movement, and we had Pope Benedict XVI talking about being good stewards of the earth. The southeastern evangelical movement usually doesn't side with the left, but when it comes to environmental issues, they are. Could this be a lightning rod to get everybody on the same page? I
mean, some people would argue, based on the realities of climate change or what some people are calling climate disruption, that we must do it, and that is incumbent upon us as representatives of God on the planet Earth, no matter how you see God, that we literally have to. We can call the atheists into this game too, because everyone has to live here. And at the core, all of these faiths have to deal with each other. We have to deal with the people next to us, and they also have a responsibility to be good examples to the people around them. So I think you're 100% right. This is a wonderful example. The Earth is the only Earth that we have. We're not going to the moon anytime soon. So we have to figure out how to do it here.
Get the agnostics. We could say, we're not sure if there's a God, but we know that it's warming.
It's true. We know that, and the interesting thing on that global warming tip, the way that the faiths think about energy, and the way that faiths think about water usage and air and how we treat the air, those are all things that are in our sacred texts. So not only is it a way for them to connect with other faiths, but it's also a way for them to connect with their own faith, to go deeper and understand what has history told us about our faith, about these certain things, about these different elements, and how do we connect back to our own faith and our knowledge of self in that process.